Hi friends, Damian Mason coming to you today to talk about the business of agriculture. You know, I've been reading a lot, and you probably have too, in publications even like the Wall Street Journal, which is a business publication. Yesterday, farm industry, hard hit by tariffs, breathes a bit easier. This is because the new NAFTA, USMCA as it's being called, was negotiated and it looks like it's going to go through, which means now the countries of 130 million people, Mexico, 330 million people, United States, and 38 million people, Canada, wonderful economies, expanding, growing economies as they are right now, are going to work together, and it's probably all going to work out great. Does this mean that we're going to have a return of $13 and $16 soybeans or $7 corn? Answer, no. And this is where folks need a little lesson in Agricultural Economics 101. Trade arguments create friction between countries, and they're not good for long-term economic expansion. That is true, but you know what? Tariffs and trade arguments do not set market prices. Supply and consumption, or supply and demand as it's known, set market prices. I don't have any soybeans in my office, but I have a can of green beans from my wife's kitchen right here. We grow these in our garden. And so you know what? If the world of 7.4 billion people eats a jar of green beans every year, and then things get really good like in 2006 to 2013 and the economies of developing countries are expanding, they can eat a few more green beans. And then all of a sudden the price of these beans goes up because they're more in demand. There's only so much supply. And then what happens? A bunch of new acres come into production in foreign countries, and we get really good technologically at growing more beans through all kinds of innovations in agriculture. Next thing you know, we have twice the amount of soybeans. And you know what happens when there's twice the amount of soybeans? They're worth half as much because the world doesn't need them, and the world will not pay a high price because they're only going to consume so much, while consumption goes up every year through a little bit of population growth and through economic expansion, because when people make more money, they eat more and they eat better. But you know what they don't do in a couple years' time? They don't double consumption of beans or milk or corn or anything else that we produce. I'm Damian Mason. Simple lesson for you in agricultural economics. Be wary when you read publications that say things like the farm belt is hurting and people are losing their farms because of the tariffs. A, it's not really true. And B, while things are not as rosy out here in middle America as they once were, and agriculture is going through a bit of contraction economically, it's not because of trade and tariffs. We do want that to get worked out, but it's mostly because of supply. Because supply and the consumption of that supply is what has always set prices from the dawn of soybean production and the dawn of man. It's always come down to supply and demand. I'm Damian Mason. I talk about the business of agriculture. Thank you for joining me. Let me know if I can ever help you out.